So now that we already have the fundamental understanding of HTML elements, the next thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to be introducing semantic HTML to us. So semantic HTML has to do with structured HTML. So the HTML we've been writing since is actually good, but there's just a problem with it. It is not structured, it's not properly structured. Good HTML code should be properly structured, and that is why semantic HTML is very important. So when we say semantic, what do we mean? So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new file. I'm going to call this semantic HTML. .html. No, semantic.html. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to be doing. And remember what we said earlier, you create your boilerplate first, because boilerplate is what will define everything about your code. So there's a shortcut to do this, but let's just type it down real quick. And we have our head, and inside here we have our title, semantic HTML, body. So now this is our boilerplate code from doc type to the body. So now the first thing I'm going to do is create an h1, put this semantic HTML. So now when you create semantic HTML elements, it simply means you're structuring your elements and putting them in sections, putting them in compartments. Let's go back to Wikipedia. So now look at this website. It might look as if this website is just a bunch of h1, h2s, paragraph, links, but no, everything that you see around here is structured. And the reason why semantic HTML is useful is so there's something we call screen readers. Screen readers are technologies, they are tools that are used to read out the content of a website, especially to those who are visually impaired. So semantic HTML is very useful for accessibility. So Wikipedia, if you look at this place is a section. All this place, this search bar plus this picture and these links around, they are sections. And then we have another section, and then we have one section here, another section of links here, and each of those links has their own section, like the icon, the link, the text, but everything is inside a button. So basically structuring your elements, structuring your HTML elements is known as semantic HTML. And we have different semantic HTML elements. So the first one we're going to be talking about is the header. So what is the header? The header semantic HTML element is the HTML element that is in charge of keeping everything that is in top level, keeping everything in the heading, keeping everything. So the first thing, so the first semantic HTML element we're going to be talking about is the header element. So this header element is responsible for the top level information of the website, such as the navigation, the logo, and the hero. So there's something we call hero. Let me zoom in. There's something we call hero. So the hero design, if you go back, let's go to another website. Let's go to dev.to, which is a blogging website. So now dev.to, okay, this doesn't have hero. Let's go back to Wikipedia. So now this can be termed as an hero section. Why? Because this is the first thing we see. We have an hero image and we have our hero text, or in other words, the header text. So the heading here can be termed as this Wikipedia. This particular part of the website is the heading, is the header. So basically we have the header tag, which is for top level information of the website, such as navigation, the logo, and hero. We have the nav. I know that we have navigation inside here, but there's a specific element called nav, or we can say navigation. So this is for links, to navigate around the website. So Wikipedia does not have any link, but if you go to somewhere like okay, let's not waste time with that. We'll create our nav link. So now This is for links. You've probably seen a lot of websites that have links. So those links are kept inside a navigation element just for easy accessibility. So when screen readers are reading through, they can see that okay, this is a link, this is not a link, this is header, this is not header. So the third one we're going to be discussing is known as the main. So this main, basically what this one contains is the main content of your website. What do I mean by main content? So basically the main content of your website serves as the body. I know we already have body, but then there's another body inside this particular body tag. So we have the header, which contains the hero, and then we have the body, like the main, this part, or this part, because this does not really have an header, but we can classify this as an header. So the main contains the contents. For example, a blog website, you have the header containing the nav links, and then you have the main containing the blog posts. So another one that we'll be talking about is section. So now this section refers to different aspects or parts of your website. So each blog post can be known as a section. Each blog post can be known as a section, and inside that section we have another um, semantic element that we know as article. Article contains content inside a section, and here we have another one called aside. You've probably seen websites that have this, this aside bars like blogs. Let's go back to that dev too. So now if you look at it very well, I know this is a navigation, but this can be classified as an aside. This can be classified as an aside. Aside elements are used for things like this. So that's semantic HTML for contents to be placed by the side of your website, e.g. side nav bars, that's side navigation menu. And the last one I'll be talking about is footer. So now we've seen we have an header and then we have the footer, and an example of footer is this. This is an example of footer. So site maps, navigation, and other links with trademark with copyright information. So that's what the footer is used for. Basically, that's what the footer keeps. So each of these elements, they contain information, and this information define those elements. This information are defined by those elements. So you can't put a navigation inside a main. No, a navigation is meant to contain navigation links. So now the next thing we're going to be doing now that we already know all the HTML, semantic HTML tags we want to look at, is to build our basic web page using this semantic HTML. So I'm not going to cancel this, but if I'm going to create a div. Why? Because a div is known as a generic container, right? We talked about that earlier. Block level and inline elements. So it contains other elements. So I can use my div as the general container, right? So now inside this general container, let's define all our semantic HTML. So we have the header. Inside the header, we have the nav, and we can put a comment here. So I'm just defining the whole structure first. So inside the nav, we can say navigation links, and after this, we'll be talking about how we can link from one page to another using HTML, which is a very fundamental practice when building websites. So now after this, we create what we have as the main section of the website. So things such as features, blog posts, and all those things can be inside the main part of the website. And then we can have different sections. So we're just going to have 2 sections, and then we can call this section 1 for now, because we don't know what we want to create yet. we're just looking at an example. And then finally we can have the footer, right? The footer section. So each of these is actually a section, but we have a dedicated section for a part for section of that web page, not necessarily the header section or the footer section, but a section inside the website. So now the first thing now is we need a logo, right? Logo can be inside here. So remember what we said about alt text. We don't have our logo yet, so we can just define the alt text to be logo, right? And then inside here we have navigation links. So to create navigation links, remember if we come to this index, we have what we call lists that we defined earlier. So now navigation links are a set of list items that are links. They are links that lead to different parts or pages of the website. So now, how many links do we want to have here? Let's create just 2. So another list are mostly used because when you're creating a link, you don't need to include numbers. You don't need to include numbers or list them out, or have them have their list style beside them. No, you just you use CSS. We're going to use CSS to reset everything at the end of the day. But this, let's just continue. So now the first thing we'll do is to create the LIs. Remember, as we said earlier, so we'll call this about, and we'll call this contact. Sorry, li contact. So now that we've already created our navigation link, everything is inside our nav. So when screen readers are reading this, nav element represents a section of the page that links to other pages or parts within the page, a section of nav. So now you can see that's what the nav link is. But we're not done. It is a link, not a list. The list makes it combines them together since they are nav links. So we can create an anchor tag or a anchor tag. So I'll just copy this, copy and paste it here too, and copy the closing tag and put it here. Copy the closing tag and put it here. So now we have our navigation link is complete. Now we can define our href. So for now we won't put in anything since we've not created any page to link to. So we'll be talking about that after we define all these sections. So the next thing we're going to be doing now is to create our main. So now inside this main, we can have our h1, and this h1 we can say semantic HTML, right? So now after we say semantic HTML, we can now put a paragraph and just define what semantic HTML means. Semantic HTML is HTML as well structured, that is well structured. It produces or it provides an architecture, let's use simple terms here, for your HTML elements, for your HTML website or web page, which follows the standard of creating good website. So I know this sounds confusing, but I mean, just for us to have a content there, we can easily just search online. Because of time, I don't want us to, semantic HTML. So what I'll do, let's just continue creating our main. So inside our main, we can now add like a button, right? And this button can say something like learn more. Sorry, I'm just going to cancel this button, learn more about semantic. Okay, that's too long for a button, right? That's too long for a button. So just leave it as learn more. So that's the main section, right? So now we can have another section. So remember, we already have our h1. We can create another h1. So create an h2 next. Now we can say section 1 and just add an article, right? So inside a section, any content that is inside a section, you can see the article element represents a complete or contained composition in a document, page, application, or site that is in principle independently distributable or reusable. So basically it is used to contain content, right? So now inside this section we can put an article, and inside this article let's just add some text. So semantic HTML. Thing we're going to be doing is lorem ipsum. So that's some text, and then we have section 2. So we can another h2 section 2, and then article. Mind you, you can create paragraphs inside here too, but it's generally advisable to create articles just to make your HTML more structured. So okay, inside my section I have content, and that content is an article defining something about that section. So now I can put lorem ipsum times 5 also. So now that's equal, right? We have content inside each of our HTML elements. So now the footer section. So the footer section is usually very similar to the nav bar. It's usually very similar to the header, except there's one thing that separates them. So I'm going to create a small element. There's what we call the small tag. I know this is not really common, but it represents side comments such as small print. And inside here, what we're going to do is there's something we call codes. We call them there's something we call codes, like all these kind of special codes in HTML. So this code is character entity. I'm sorry, I didn't. Yeah, we call it Unicode rather. Yes, there's something called Unicode. So now this Unicode represents character entity, and these character entities represent symbols which can be used in HTML. Common symbols that we use for websites, for programming, ASCII symbols, and all those things. I'll drop a link in description for you to read more on those things. So basically, these links provide, or these codes provide us access to different symbols that you see in everyday use. So this is known as a copyright symbol, copy, and then we can put 2024 semantic HTML, and then full stop, all rights reserved, right, to make it look more realistic. So now we've created our semantic HTML. So I'm just going to comment this. We're not using it anymore, or let's just cancel it. We don't need it. And then we can put all this explanation on top, right, just to define everything we're creating. And one more thing is left. We don't have our logo yet, but let's use the image we have just to represent that we're dealing with HTML. So remember how I said we should link to images that we download. We have our HTML image inside our folder. So what are we going to do? Since we're inside the same folder, right, we don't have any folder inside this particular directory, inside this whole place. It's just files. They are in the same place. So you just wait full stop / and it brings out everything that is inside there, and then you click on it, right? So now, because this image is the size, and we are creating a logo, the logo is meant to be small. Image tag has another attribute called width. So now we can specify the width, and this width is usually in pixels, but you don't have to include pixels there. So I'm just going to put 50. And then we also have height. So it's not really necessary you put height. If you have width, the width is going to make the height the same size as itself, and the height is going to make the width the same size as itself. So I'm just going to put 50 as well to make it equal. So now, since we have this one running here, I'm just going to close these remaining ones and open this with live server. Remember this, I'm going to right click and then open with live server. So if you don't have live server, I would advise you come here to extensions and type live server down, and install this by today. Is very, very useful for your development journey. So now we've just we've just created our semantic HTML element. We've just created a basic web page with our semantic HTML element, and it's looking very, very, very basic, right? So now in the next video we're going to be talking about CSS, how we can make this beautiful, how we can add colors, how we can add make this look like a real navbar, how we can center this here, make the button more beautiful, add all those effects, we'll be talking about the box model, we'll be talking about colors, we'll be talking about background colors, we'll be talking about fonts, we'll be talking about padding, margin, and how you can space contents, align them, structure them, layout in the next video. So just to recap, in this video we talked about semantic HTML, right? Semantic HTML. So now in this one we spoke about how we can structure our elements instead of just using divs, when we should use divs, and what we should do after we use divs, other things that we can use, right? We spoke about the header, spoke about the nav, what they are used for. The header used to store introductory content, used to store top level information of the website, and inside the header we have things like the nav, like you can see now. Its header typically contains a group of introductory navigation aids, right? So basically we now also spoke about how another disk can be used as navigation inside navbar, and then concluded on talking about the main section of the element, which is known as the main, which contains the hero page. We can say the hero page or the main part of the website. And then we looked at different sections such as section 1, section 2, different sections on their own and with their contents defined using the article, um elements, right? And then finally we spoke about the footer, and in this footer we defined our, you can see it here, our copyright information. So thank you very much. So that wraps up this video. So for those of you out there who want to learn how to build your website, who want to learn know what web development is, know what it takes, what it means to build a website, this channel is for you, and I encourage you to follow through, because videos will be coming out subsequently in this order, from HTML to CSS, JavaScript, to frameworks, and then to backend development. So basically, that is what we're going to be doing for this channel. That's what I'm going to be covering. And I look forward to seeing you people also in the next video. Thank you very much. Stay tuned and subscribe.